Okay, guys, welcome back. We are excited because we are starting today The Bright Sword. And this is the first time that we've done it like this, a book like this, because if you remember when we did You Like It Darker, it was a series of short stories, and so we just did a short story every week. And this time, we get the opportunity to go through chapters of books and talk through it, and we'll have predictions, all that good stuff, and you get to read along with us, and we'd love to engage with you on the Discord. And so while we get started, you guys know we always kick it off with some sort of author introduction. And so here's a word from the author of The Bright Sword. He has this on his website. He says, "Hi, I'm the author of the #1 New York Times best-selling Magicians trilogy, The Magicians, The Magician's King, and The Magician's Land, which was adapted as a TV show that ran for 5 seasons on Sci-Fi. I've also written 2 novels for children, The Silver Arrow, which is a New York Times and Wall Street Journal, People Magazine, Apple, and Amazon all put this on their best of the year list, and its sequel, The Golden Swift. I do some journalists and screenwriting too. I grew up in Lexington, Massachusetts, the son of 2 English professors. My twin brother, Austin, is a writer and game designer. And my oldest sister, Sheba, is an artist. Sometimes I live in Brooklyn, New York, other times in Sydney, Australia, where my wife is from. I have 3 kids and a somehow steadily increasing number of cats." Dude, that seems to be a common theme with writers. They're all cat people. And so that is the author, Lev Grossman, who wrote that up there. So, Robert, give us the rundown on The Bright Sword.
A gifted young knight named Colum, did I say that name right, Justin?
You sure did.
There we go. Arrives at Camelot to compete for a spot on the round table, only to find out he's too late. The king died 2 weeks ago at the Battle of Camlin, leaving no heir, and only a handful of knights of the round table survive. And they aren't the heroes of legend. You're not going to find Lancelot or Sir Gawain. They're the oddballs of the round table from the edges of the stories, like Sir Palomedes, I hope I said that right, the Saracen knight, and Sir Dagonet, Arthur's fool, who was knighted as a joke. They're joined by Nimue, who was Merlin's apprentice until she turned on him and buried him under a hill. Together, this ragtag fellowship will set out to rebuild Camelot in a world that has lost its balance.
Hey, this one here is tagged fantasy, retellings, mythology, historical fantasy, science fiction fantasy, and magic.
So like that little quick synopsis I gave actually gave you more of what this story's about than the first 7 chapters.
You're not wrong, dude. You're not wrong.
But before we dive in, I have one important question to ask.
I know what you're asking. I'm ready. Let's hear it.
Dylan, did you read this book?
Come on, Dylan.
Listen. I read the book.
My man.
He did it.
But listen.
Oh, no. Why does there have to be a stipulation?
I know.
I only got 4 chapters.
Oh, okay.
That's not bad. That's 4 chapters more than I expected.
Had a busy couple weeks. I was fitting it in where I could. I got 4 chapters.
So, are you guys reading like the are you physical copy reading, Kindle, audiobook? What you guys doing?
I'm doing
audiobook.
both.
I got
both. All right.
I got both. So I got a physical copy and I also did the audio book for like little off times or when I'm driving or whatever, mowing the grass.
Oh, that's perfect, dude. I love audiobooks for mowing the grass. I should have done the audiobook of this knowing I was going to butcher some names. In fact, after last week, I want to audiobook everything. But I'm going to look to Justin to be the name expert of this book. And
well, Dylan too.
Yeah.
Well, so I think, honestly, I would recommend the audiobook, Robert, if you are feeling up for it, because I feel like it really sets the tone and gets you in the mood and in that mindset of like the King Arthur kind of vibe. So
that's cool.
I would recommend it.
It's the dude's accent.
Yeah.
The dude has the English. He has the English accent, and he does like. I'm actually looking to see what the narrator's name is as we're kind of chatting about it. But not only does he do the accent, but like Nicholas Guy Smith, whoever that is. Nicholas Guy Smith does an amazing job at just kind of like you said, setting the tone. He does a lot of different voices, and it's good, really good.
Yeah, so like I said in that like brief what this is about, I actually learned more about the novel I'm reading than Like, because right off the rip, like we're introduced to Colum, and you just know he's poor and he's a knight, and it's actually a pretty cool opening chapter. He's getting absolutely wrecked by another knight in a fight, and he ends up like both of them are kind of unmarked, or at first glance, if I recall, the knight he was fighting was unmarked. So like that was a pretty cool like opening chapter, a little action to get us started.
Yeah, because when that first chapter hit, I was like, oh man, if this is how this book's gonna be, we're in for a treat. He stabs the dude in the eye.
Yeah, well, the dude was dishonorable. Like Column's like, hey man, you need to yield. Like Colum got him. He's got him dead to rights. He's like, yield, man. And in the olden days, like these knights would throw down, and if it was a battle of honor and the other knight yields, he has to give him his armor and a horse. That's typically how this would go. I guess old boy didn't want to give up his armor and his horse because he tried to betray. He was dishonorable, like you said. Colum had to stab him in the eye. It was brutal.
Well, yeah. I mean, so yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know if, because he never really, from what I picked up on in that, it didn't sound like it was your typical battle between knights. Like, we're going to give up armor. I feel like didn't it just like he's on the road and he's just getting attacked by this random knight?
Well, if I remember, he was on the road and the knight was like, hey, you want to have a duel or something to that effect. And I do remember at the end of the fight, Colum was like, it says a lot about Colum's character that he, like, even though this guy tried to kill him and Colum killed him first, he took the time to dig a grave and bury the knight. And he didn't even strip him of his armor. He didn't take anything from him. He took, like, I think some food. And he hung his shield over the tree. And when he hung his shield over the tree, he noticed the shield was azure. It had 3 scepters on it and a chevron. So I looked it up and what those meant, like on a coat of arms. And the azure means like loyalty. The scepter's royalty, and the chevron means protector. So that led me to believe this dude killed somebody important, but I'm sure we'll dive into that later.
Yeah, bro, that's one of our lightning round questions. Yeah. I'm excited. Don't go there. I'm just joking. But yeah, that was a great first battle. Really cool. And like you said, I think it's a good introduction to Colum too. Dylan, how'd you feel about it, bro? How'd you feel like, so as overall, just kind of thinking about the story and where you're at in the 4 chapters, is it a story that's engaging to you? Are you enjoying it so far?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely am enjoying it, and I think it is engaging. I struggle with getting into books, so I feel like once I kind of get over this hump, I'll get more into it as we kind of go. But I think overall, I agree. Like that opening with the action was pretty cool. And then something that I feel like was also kind of cool was, or I guess you kind of said it, like spoke about his character. I feel like it seemed like Colum was like questioning like why, almost like the knight lost on purpose or like did not, almost like he wanted to lose that and in a dishonorable way by being unalived through the eye. Maybe not necessarily through the eye, but but I feel like, so that was definitely intriguing to me of like, you know, maybe what made that knight want to be put in that position where he wanted to be unalived. I'm not sure. I feel like that question has not been answered yet, so I'm assuming it probably hasn't been in the first 7 chapters, but that intrigued me more than probably the most of everything that I read so far.
Yeah. You know, I feel like in these first, and maybe she was in the first chapter too. I can't remember. Maybe she was second chapter, but the girl at the tavern.
That's the second chapter. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like in the first 2 chapters, we get a lot of mystery going on because we still with her, you know, she comes in and does the thing and she's talking to him. And then she basically has an epiphany or whatever it is that she does where she gives him some sort of like fortune telling type of deal and then leaves. And then no one recalls who she is essentially.
Yeah. That was a really cool scene. Like leading up to that scene, there was a line in the book that I was like, okay, I like this dude. Like he drew me in with it. He had a quote like Colum's traveling from killing the knight to the inn that you were just talking about. And there's a line in there that said like Colum, it's like, you know, adventures are exciting when you're retelling them to people, but they're boring when you're in the middle of them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He's just traveling across this dull countryside on his way to Camelot.
Yeah.
And that was cool. The lady you mentioned, that prophecy, she said the sword's in the sea and the last ship has sailed.
Yeah.
Is what she told him.
And then he was like, well, what does that mean? She goes,
Yeah.
You'll know it when you get there. Essentially, like, see ya.
Yeah. She's like, bye, call him. And he's like, I didn't tell her my name.
Yeah.
And he takes off running out of the inn after her. And then he's like standing in a fairy circle of mushrooms.
Yeah. And he's like he's kind of drunk at this point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My man was sloshing back the ale, dude.
Yeah, dude. So, yeah, dude. So he had a hard night, I feel like.
Yeah, didn't he say that? I feel like in like his inner like monologue or whatever you want to say, he was like, he wasn't even drinking because he wanted to. It was like he thought that it was something knights do.
Yeah,
I think it said a line that said he called for the ale because he thought it was something a knight would do or something like that.
Yeah.
He was trying to look cool in front of this girl, bro. He was vibing on her.
I think that's kind of what we're seeing from him in general in these first 7 chapters is here's Colin going, I'm doing these things because I feel like that's the thing I'm supposed to do as a knight. And he's trying to, it's almost like that whole, like, dress for the job you want, not the job you have kind of vibe. My man Colin's like, hey, this is the job I want, so I'm going to do the thing.
He's like, hey, nobody actually knighted me because I want to be knighted by King Arthur, but I am a knight, baby.
Exactly. And then there's like, a little backstory about him too. I'm sure you'll get into that. So I'll let you.
Yeah, dude, that was the backstory's bleak, dude. Like the first couple chapters, like, yeah, you got a knight getting stabbed in the eye, but there's like little bits of humor. Like he ran into that drunken knight in the end, and there's just this giant drunk oaf like talking to Colin. And like there's little stuff like that. So far it's kind of lighthearted a little bit. But then you go into the backstory of Colin, and he was bastard born. His stepfather sent him off to live with like the Lord of the Lands to train to become a knight, but instead he ended up a servant. And then I won't even go into it because we try to be like family friendly here, but a lot of dark, depressing stuff happened to this dude.
Sure.
Yeah, it was pretty rough for O'Callum. It actually kind of made me go, dang, dude. I hope this guy gets whatever he wants.
Sure. You mentioned the oaf before we go into more about the column thing. Mm-hmm. But when the oaf, the drunken guy, when he was like, I'm going to Camelot, sir. Like he's like, Camelot, go home, that kind of deal. And
that
it's
was
like
actually really accurate.
Yeah, thank you, bro. That's sometimes I have good impressions. But when he's telling him that, you're like, dude, Camelot must be in shambles.
Yeah.
If the guy that everyone else is making fun of because he's in a drunken stupor is telling you that you're an idiot, you're in a bad way, bro.
Hey man, Colin was in a bad way. I'm gonna have to listen to the audio book now. I'm gonna use one of my Audible credits on it tomorrow. I'm gonna hear the accents.
You might as well, bro.
Yeah, dude. So like Colin goes through like a pretty depressing youth, and as he grows up in this castle, he starts like just wailing on everyone, dude. He's training with the marshal. The marshal's kind of helping him, and he's like beating the Lord of the Castle's sons in duels. He's getting jumped 3-on-1, winning the fights. Like it's pretty cool. But then eventually, the Lord of the Castle like finds a business venture where he no longer needs Colum's money. So he lets him go early. And on his way out, Colum's like, well, you know what, dude? I need some armor if I'm going to be a knight. So he steals that armor and off to the real world he goes. Yep. He makes his way to Camelot. And I thought it was pretty cool learning like how Colum got his armor. And I never would have guessed like this dude who wants to be a knight and that's what he wants to live by. But he kind of got to start as a thief.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, though, he did have a rough way to go,
man.
And so it was one of those, like, you just kind of have to do what you sometimes you're a product of your circumstance and his circumstances were pretty rough. And so the only way to get to the place he was to do things that maybe were outside of himself. And, we see that in the real world sometimes, and this was a good example of that because really you see who he is. He's not a thief, really. He's a dude who's just trying to do the thing, and he wants to do the honorable thing, go be a knight of the Round Table, but he has to get out of the situation he's in. And that marshal kind of took a special interest in him too. And when that dude was, shipping out, he had to do what he had to do.
Exactly. I really enjoyed it. We're getting to like where we're gonna be caught up with Dylan part of the discussion, but like he arrives in Camelot. And it's everything he thought it would be. Like, he describes everything in great detail. He made it sound pretty epic. I felt like I was there reading it. Like, I could picture it in my head perfectly. It was really good, but it kind of turned into like that classic tale, like never meet your heroes type deal.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because when he meets the knights, I feel like, dude, because there were moments though, even in those conversations where, you know, which one was laying his head down? You remember his name?
I think it was Villers. Is that his name?
Maybe that's it. Like, he seemed like a somewhat friendly one, you know, like.
Okay, maybe it wasn't Villers, because Villers the one that throws hands with him.
Okay, yeah. So one of them's semi-friendly, and he's just like, let the boss sit, you know, like kind of stuff. And then there's the other one's like, come on, boy, go home, boy, you know, that kind of thing. Dude, you gotta get the audiobook.
I do. It's done. It's getting bought tomorrow.
But yeah, it's like, it's a very mixed signal-y type of deal. And there's moments where he's in the conversation and moments where he's just kind of sitting outside of it and getting to witness these dudes live the life that they're leading at the moment, which you said it's just a mess. And they're the outcasts of the whole entire round table.
Yeah, they're not even like the good knights, like the ones you know of. They're just like these random dudes over here. But
and they know that too.
Did I say it right? Is it Villers?
I feel, yeah.
All right, so like Villers just decides he's gonna, like, for whatever reason, Colin wants to prove himself, and he thinks he's gonna do that by challenging Villers, who's like described to be, you know, much better than him. Yeah. And naturally, Colin gets knocked out. Yeah. Like flat laid out, and he's rescued by, I'm gonna let you say this name so I don't butcher it, dude. What's the name of the one-armed knight? Sir, yeah, Dylan, hit me, dude. What's the name of the one-armed knight?
Go ahead and try to say it, and I'll try to remember if I can correct you or not.
I don't even know, bro.
No, go ahead, Robert.
Oh, I was about to say.
No,
me?
Yeah. Try, and then I'll see if I can remember.
Is it Bedivere?
That does sound right. Bedivere. Yeah, I think so.
Is it Bedivere?
If not, it's close enough.
All right, dude. So this one-armed knight like kind of stops Villers from stomping Column's head, and like Bedivere shows up, and Villers is like curb stomping Column, and he's like, "Hold on, dude, what are you doing? Back it up. Let's stop." And that's where, like, you know, Sir Bedivere ended up being that town drunk from the earlier chapter who told Colin not to even go to Camelot. And then he kind of introduces, like, the remaining knights from there, and he lets Colin know, like, dude, you're not going to find King Arthur here. King Arthur's dead, and he died at the Battle of Camlin. This is, like, an interesting twist to the original Arthurian legend, because Bedivere and Arthur are the only two knights that, like, survived that battle. So I'm curious to see how it plays out from here, like where we go anyway.
Right. Yeah, I thought, you know, even the twist of what happened between, you know, Arthur and Lancelot was nice. And actually, dude, I'll be honest, I really like the back and forth stuff. Like, I like that. And Dylan, I don't know if you're there yet. I can't remember exactly what.
Oh, like the time jumps.
So. Yeah, where you go and you. So there's time jumps where you go and you see a glimpse of Arthur and some of those moments, and then it comes back to Colin, but you kind of get a little bit of both. And I feel like that's I love that dynamic that kind of gives you the backstory without it being told secondhand. You're just there and you're like, this is what happened, you know? And I really dig that.
Yeah, I did too. We had the Colin backstory, and then you get like Bedivere's backstory, and his is actually spread out like over a couple chapters.
Yeah.
And you find out like he grew up with one arm. He was born that way, and he ended up being skilled with the Warhammer because of his size. And I think one of the earliest things was like they talked about how Arthur pulled the sword from the stone, like the classic story, and Bedivere happened to be there when it happened. And he wanted to, pledge his life to Arthur from that moment on. And then it turned out he was like in love with Arthur, but it was like an egregious sin. He couldn't love Arthur, but he promised he would always defend him. So it was like actually cool to dive into that character some more.
He's probably the character we've seen the most developed, really.
Oh, through 7 chapters, easily.
And I remember I thought it was kind of cool when they were talking about the arm part, and they were saying, I can't remember if it was his grandpa or his father or who said it, but they said, hey, you know, you have two hands. You have one that does good and one that does evil. And basically God took your evil hand away so you would always just do good.
Yeah.
You know, kind of deal. And yeah, there's a ton of backstory on him. Like even you were mentioning the in love part with Arthur, and how, you know, he was like, if I can't reveal my feelings for him, then I will just know his secrets or whatever the case may be. Cause he starts to dig into more about Arthur in that story. So you even get more Arthur backstory through his story. Cause a lot of his story is just built around just, you know, his care for Arthur and how he wants to protect Arthur. It's just really well done.
I did like the scene where they were on the hunt and him and Arthur's back and forth in there. And then like Arthur's about to kill this deer, but somebody else kills it first as like a red knight or something. And Arthur just turns around. And he's like, huh, Bedivere, we're in an adventure. Like that's the time. That's what's up, dude. Like I want more of that. And then like it quickly cut away from that scene. I was like, oh, I hope we get back to it.
Yeah.
Like I dig that, dude. It's awesome.
And I think Arthur, like that's a good example. I think that Arthur is exactly what we picture King Arthur being, because they mentioned the Saxons being this ruthless, brutal pagan race or pagan whatever people, and who would kill people for just the most ridiculous things, you know, like, and they would do it and like torture people in terrible ways. Like how far can you walk across, you know, these hot steel and all these different things. And Arthur's like, yeah, we're not doing that. And so he wanted to make a common law, and he wanted people to treat people fairly. And those are things I think that we all think about when we think about Arthur, of all the legends that we read and hear about him in all stories, as Arthur tends to be that Captain America kind of vibe, where he's like, I want everything to be fair, and I'm fighting for good, and I want my knights to be honorable. Like I even like that little scene where they're talking about how the Knights of the Round Table came to be. Because, you know, you have all these knights and they're all over the world, and, you know, you're using them to fight battles. But then when there's not battles, you just have all these soldiers everywhere. And they talk about how soldiers get bored. So when soldiers get bored, they start bullying people in the towns. And so, you know, he wanted to start this prestigious group of Knights of the Round Table who would come together. And so everyone wants to be a part of that. And they would go out on all these adventures and do knightly things like doing good for a town or doing it. And they would show back up at the round table and tell stories of their adventures together and all that kind of stuff. It's just also, I think it's really cool. Personally.
I do too. This book is 100% my jam. Like I'm glad this is our book club book right now.
Yeah. 100%.
I'm looking forward to diving more in. Something to note, like when you were talking about his pagan roots, like Bedivere went to the town Arthur was originally from and kind of dug into it a little bit. And then we also saw like the jealousy side of Bedivere a little bit when Arthur married Guinevere, and he's oh, he doesn't really love her. He's marrying her for political and financial gain. Yeah. So it's like a very like, look at this jealous dude. Like,
relax. He said she's not even curvy or whatever. Yeah. That's what he said. Like basically she was just very plain or whatever. Like she's not ugly, but she just doesn't have the curve. I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember what was said, but I thought that was kind of funny. Yeah. All right, man. Overall, man, so far so good.
It is, dude. So the last chapter we read was a pretty cool one, bro. Like it was probably a pretty good spot to end on for our first discussion. Like we come back to the present day, Column gets all that information. Like this is all that's left of the Knights of the Round Table. Arthur's dead, killed by his own son, Mordred. Arthur left the castle to besiege Lancelot, who was like, you know, with Guinevere. And he was accused of sleeping with his wife, so he went to go get revenge for that. And while gone, his son told everyone Arthur was dead and took the castle and half the kingdom for himself. So my man comes back to try and throw hands, and him and his son ended up killing each other in the brawl. And allegedly, Lancelot's still out there somewhere. They suspect he is.
They suspect it, yeah.
Yeah, and then Nimue, Lady of the Lake, what up, shows up. And she's trying to like make the knights aware that, hey, this King Rentz, I think his name is, the last of the 11 kings, is over here rallying an army because he's ready to be the new king of Britain. Like word got out, Arthur's not here. So all the knights are like, well, we better pray for a miracle like the old days and fast. And I thought this was cool because they're arguing. Like, dude's like, man, I'm not eating, waiting for something to show up. And dude, the chapter ends with Namu waking all the knights up, and I guess they got their miracle because like half the wall of the hall's missing.
Oh yeah,
and that's kind of where we ended. The Great Hall, kind of the back wall of the Great Hall vanished, and that was the end of this week's chapters assignment.
Well, I like how even in that with the miracle part where they're like not eating, they're like at 10 minutes in, they're like, usually it happened by now. They're always like, well, sometimes it's just the little things, and when they were talking about with Arthur, but I thought that was cool too. And I like how Colin, even in that, he steps up and he's like, he was like, I almost regretted it the moment I said it, but then I went ahead and said it, and he does the thing and he challenges them. But yeah, this is really cool. All right, bro, you ready to get into this lightning round?
I'm ready, dude.
Okay, we're going to have some fun. This first one, I think all of us can answer, including our sweet baby Dylan, since he read the book. Any predictions about who the knight might have been that he fought at the beginning of the book? I don't think any of us believe that that's just a one and done situation, because it's the first chapter. It's an epic battle. There's too much description about the armor of the knight that he killed. Even the fact that he rubbed off the signa or whatever off the armor. So do you guys have any predictions about who that knight might have been? Robert.
Well, I have him.
Yeah, go ahead, Robert. Sorry.
I have in my notes that he took a pendant from him also, and I think that lady in chapter 2 made a mention about that pendant. I don't remember what she said.
She did.
But I'm going to go ahead and throw the random prediction out there that's Lancelot.
Oh, yeah, that's my prediction.
Lancelot wanted to die. This knight wanted, almost like you said, wanted to be killed. Like Arthur's dead now. He probably feels like that's his fault. It's Lancelot.
Dylan.
I was going to say more of like almost like a Judas situation. I was going to say like he maybe betrayed King Arthur. He was someone who was close to King Arthur and betrayed him. And now he regrets doing that. And because now he sees, the aftermath of all that. And so now he just wanted to unalive himself, but didn't have the strength to do it himself.
Yeah. And I think that's a good prediction because if in the beginning of that fight, it even Colin's talking about like, he's shorter than me, but he's just so much better than me, essentially. Like he's basically getting manhandled until he wasn't, And so, yeah, I agree with that. I believe that. And I think we'll see later on down the line the thing that he took. And also, maybe they'll find the shield one day. But yeah, Lancelot for sure. Which kind of leads into the next question. Which I was going to say, do you believe Lancelot is dead? And if we all
I do now.
We all think that he's dead. What about King Arthur? Do you guys think King Arthur's dead?
Oh, yeah, dude. He got ran through with the spear, man. Yeah.
You remember when
he ran his son through with the spear. His son cut his head off, right?
Yeah. And you remember when the knights were like, I don't understand why King Arthur would fight with a spear, like when he had Excalibur at his side. So, yeah.
What if?
Go ahead.
What if King Arthur is actually alive? It was just someone else standing in his place pretending to be him, and that's the person that died.
He lost King Arthur.
A little Padme Amidala kind of situation there.
He lost Excalibur in the middle of the fight, so he grabbed the spear because it was the closest weapon to him. Okay. He did.
Maybe. I mean, maybe not, though. All right, here we go.
Where's Merlin?
He's in a hill somewhere.
I know. I didn't know that. The description told me where Merlin was.
I'm sure we'll find out about that hill at some point. All right. So I think it's safe to say, Colin went to the round table. He was stoked about it. He believed and anticipated that it was going to be a certain way. It ended up not being. So let me ask you all this question. Have you ever had a moment like Colin had at the round table where you were super stoked to get to a place and start something that was not quite what you expected? Dylan.
I feel like a lot of things in life are that way.
Like McDonald's today.
Yeah, like McDonald's. Exactly like McDonald's, actually. Yeah, exactly like McDonald's. Because I was gonna say, I went in with low expectations, but I did go in with low expectations, but they just like went even lower than I
Dang.
thought possible. So yeah.
McDonald's failed you. Robert?
When I got a job at GameStop as a teenager, I'll be brief. Like, I just was happy to have my foot in the video game industry at that time. It was cool talking to the customers that were gamers, but the business, the micromanaging and the business side of it, like, hey, you need to get these sales quotas. Hey, you need to get these reserves. Hey, you need to sell these gaming magazines. I don't care that grandma's buying a sucker. You need to try and sell her this magazine subscription. Really hated that part of it. So like that kind of, I was like super excited to start that job, and then it just was not what I thought it was going to be at all.
Yeah, that's a good one. You know, I was going to use GameStop, but since you did, I won't. I'll go with my number 2, which is getting my first apartment.
Oh, dude,
nice.
Nice.
I was excited about getting an apartment. I was like, this is going to be awesome. And then I didn't realize how much money I had to pay for all that.
Yeah. Surprise.
So much money. All right, boys. So you guys know we always have to end this with the last 3 words for this one. So great first week. Really cool 7 chapters. What are your 3 words? Dylan, for 4 chapters, what do you got for us?
I didn't even think about this part. King Arthur rules.
We'll take it. Robert?
Let's see. I can't think of 3 words to get out what I want to say, so I'm just going to say Arthur is dead.
Oh, man. I was going to say Lancelot is dead. So there you go.
There it is.
We're morbid here on the Nerdy Reads podcast.
Colin's imposter syndrome. There you go. I did it.
There you go. Everyone's dead. All right, guys. Check it out.